so far on the real heroes of Telemark, parachuting into Norway to recreate one of the most daring raids of World War II.
What an amazing sight!
60 years ago, 4 Norwegian resistance fighters were sent as an advance party to recce this innocent-looking factory where Hitler was producing heavy water as part of a top-secret project with enormous ramifications.
The Germans were embarked on a race for an atomic bomb.
But the men landed miles off course and faced a marathon 15-day journey in appalling conditions. Last week, we put 4 commandos through a part of that ordeal, hauling the same bulky equipment and living on the same minimal rations as the original team.
Today was by far the most difficult day. It's only today that we've realised exactly how much weight they did have, but it's very, very heavy and very hard going.
But we pushed them even further to see how hard it is to survive in one of Europe's harshest environments.
Rather cold. Don't try this at home.
The aim 60 years ago was to prepare the ground for British commandos who would be flown in by glider to destroy the factory. But when 1 towing plane and 2 gliders crashed, the whole mission had to be abandoned. With no backup in place, the men of Operation Grouse had to go into hiding, while planners in London came up with a new strategy. I wanted to tell this tale on this, the 60th anniversary of the raid here at Vemork, because I believe that what these men achieved epitomizes the determination and the knowledge of nature that is the foundation of everything I believe and teach. This is reindeer moss, so called because reindeer use this for food. It even sees them through some of the harshest winter conditions to be experienced in Europe. I'm on the Hardanger Plateau in Norway, where the temperatures could drop to minus 30 degrees Celsius. Through the winter of 1942-43, this was home to 4 men. And reindeer moss is what they had to scavenge for food when their supplies ran out. In 1965, the story of how those men led an assault to destroy a key part of the German nuclear research program was made into a Hollywood movie, The Heroes of Telemark. But for me, the film missed out the most fascinating part of the tale, the incredible survival skills that made it possible for resistance fighters to operate in this incredibly hostile environment and to thwart German efforts to build the first atomic bomb. But in November 1942, the whole mission was close to collapse. The 4 members of the advanced party, codenamed Operation Grouse, were hiding in this hut. They knew they could expect no mercy if they were found. The Germans had already murdered the survivors of the glider crashes in cold blood, and they were taking steps to prevent another attack.
One of the problems was the Germans knew that Vemork was the target. Consequently, the garrison was increased. There were greater attention paid to fences and mines laid and so on.
I then got the message that we would go up in the mountains and stay there and wait. Well, that's easier to sit in London and say go up in the mountains. So we didn't know where to go.
But they had no alternative. Their hideaway was too close to the plant, and the Germans were searching the area.
So we moved away as quickly as we could into Hardangervidda and found another base there where we felt quite safe.
High on the plateau, we've located the very hut the men retreated to. Successive attempts to send in reinforcements failed due to the appalling winter, so they had to stay here for 3 whole months. But its position was ideal. It was 20 miles deeper into the mountains than their original hiding place and well beyond the reach of the Germans garrisoned at the heavy water plant. Amazing though it may seem, in February 1943, the fate of the Western world hung on the weather conditions here on Europe's most desolate mountain plateau, and on the ability of 4 men huddled inside this hut to survive them. The men would be here so long that they would actually begin to suffer from the effects of starvation and vitamin deficiency. Their morale would be constantly bombarded by repeated setbacks and crushing boredom. The biggest problem was finding food in this barren landscape, and that's the challenge for our soldiers this week as they put the Arctic survival skills needed up here to the test. First, we've got 2 Royal Marine Mountain leaders, Britain's Arctic warfare specialists. And we've recruited 2 of their Norwegian counterparts. Both grew up on stories about the real heroes of Telemark.
They were strong, well-motivated bunch of men, which is why they were selected by SOE in the first place. They had the motivation, the spirit, and they were back in their homeland, more importantly, so they had that definite drive and focus in here.
To complete the mission, the British now decided to train up a second group of Norwegians, codenamed Gunnerside. If all went well, they would parachute in on the next full moon. But with each month that went by, the Germans increased their stranglehold on occupied Norway and got that bit closer to producing the heavy water needed to build a bomb. Together with grouse, they would have to find a way into the heavily fortified factory.
We had 3 tasks when we waited for Gunnerside. One was to establish contact with people who could give us some information of the production of heavy water, what the Germans were doing, and so on. The other was to keep up the radio communication with England. And the third was we had the old problem again, how to stay alive, how to get food.
The most obvious solution was to search other huts, and as the best skier, Klaus Hellberg was sent to scour the area.
At that time, people didn't keep food in their huts because there was a shortage of food all over Norway. And then we had no food at all.
Okay, vi vet det. Jag tränger ikke knapp.
We tried, of course, to find reindeer, but at that time there was no reindeer in the area.
But they had to get strength from somewhere. Reluctantly, they turned to the one staple that kept the reindeer alive through the frozen winter.
So we dug into the snow and found the reindeer moss and ate that.
Reinmåse? Du skal vel ikke ha oss til ete det, vel?
Ja, noe må vi ha fyll i magen med.
Reinmåse.
If our soldiers want to avoid the same diet, they're going to have to rely on their survival skills. Out here, that's going to be a major task in itself.
Well, you know the score. So you've got 3 days to try and find food. I think it's going to be a real challenge.
Well, on the way in, Ray, we did notice there's quite a few ptarmigan tracks going up into the smaller trees, so that's one option. And we've got the resident fishermen in Preben, so I think that's the other option.
Yeah, the 2.5 kilos they got fish in this lake back in '63. So
If you catch one like that, that's it. That'll last you 3 days, won't it?
We've not got anything else to do. We've got a fantastic base to work from, so divide up the jobs and get straight out there and get stuck into trying to capture some ptarmigan and fish.
They're starting close to the hut. Preben has decided to fish for trout in the lake beside it.